Hello everybody. I just realized my mic wasn't muted for the entire time I had that text rolling on the screen. So if anybody heard me walking around my house or drinking anything, that's why. Let's get the live dashboard up. We got 5 people. Not too many, but yeah, that's to be expected. So, let's talk, guys. Wow, big milestone. I hit like 3,000 subscribers, I think, several months ago now. 2 or 3. I don't know. I don't keep track. And as you all have noticed, I've been on a little bit of a hiatus. I haven't really made anything recently. I just sat for the past like 2 hours recording audio for videos that I'm going to put up within the next few days. I just have to edit them, basically. And one of those videos, I was, providing an update. And I figured that's kind of, I'd rather much rather do a live stream. I'd much rather sit down and go live and hear what you guys have to say in the live chat. And I think I'll still put up the update video. It's going to go over many of the same points I'm going to talk about here, but it's a little more concise. This will probably be an hour. That video will be like 10 minutes, maybe 15. And people who don't show up for the streams can tell me what they think in the comments. But here you guys can talk to me live. Convince me that our aliens really are demonic. Sasquatch. Samsquatch. We're not going to be talking about aliens and whether or not they're demons tonight. Hello, Bob. Hello, Ike Crockett. Hello, 3 Claude. Tell me if the stream quality is decent, if there's buffering. YouTube's telling me I have bad video settings, but I don't know. If you guys don't complain about it, I'm pretty sure there's nothing that we'll have to worry about. There's not really anything going on screen. It's just a static image, and then you have my audio. That's it. Really don't know how that could be a bad setting. I don't know how that could have issue transmitting. Sobieski is just a screen name. It's like a name that I picked for this channel because of John Sobieski, number 3. All right, AAT Roger, we will talk about the hunting call. Basically, the hunting call, most of you guys don't know about it, I'm guessing. It was a website I was trying to run. Before that, it was Demetrios Magazine, and the idea was I'll put up articles alongside videos, and I'll get other people to put up articles with me. Well, guess what? That's very difficult. And it only got more and more difficult as my own personal standards for professionalism continued to increase. It's the main reason I haven't made videos like the Larry Thorne video, videos like the Rhodesia overview, videos like the Battle of Kosovo video, because all of those videos are very amateur. They're very embarrassing to me. They're full of minor inaccuracies, but enough minor inaccuracies that it's obnoxious. I mean, we have the Battle of Kulikovo video. Well, that's a Freudian slip. The Battle of Kosovo video, which uses paintings from the Battle of Kulikovo. There's typos in the subtitles for the Serbian hymn. I prefaced the Rhodesia overview video with this, like, religious justification. It's weird. I should have just got immediately to the history. I really did not like that. Okay? I really didn't like that and other minor parts of my older videos. So, obviously, in the videos I make in the future that are more trying to be these e-documentaries, I'm going to hold them to a higher standard, and I was holding the articles to higher standards too. And I also had to format the articles for a print publication. And, well, I mean, it was nice getting the little Patreon bucks, but the Patreon bucks isn't much when you're paying for shipping and printing and all this stuff, so I'm shutting down the Patreon, basically. The little experiment with the Hunting Call website and with the articles and with the print journal and the magazine, I'd say has failed. Maybe in the future. Maybe when this is much, much bigger, I can try my hand at that again. But right now, I don't have the free time. I don't have the energy to do that. Also, I think this symphony is a little too loud. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this down a bit. Just for me, on my end, it's a little loud. That's Mahler, Symphony Number 2. I probably said his last name wrong. I don't really care. Gustav can get pissed off at me from... I doubt he's in purgatory. He's probably in hell. I'm pretty sure he was Jewish. I don't think he converted to Catholicism. So, sorry, buddy. Unfortunately, I don't think you get to compose new symphonies in the internal fire. Very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. The Chad Crusade. Okay. Versus Virgin Secular Genocide. Very cool. Very cool, Sam Squatch. Well, it's very weird that people seem to correlate the Crusades with like atrocities and genocide when the Crusader Kingdom of Jerusalem, well, kingdoms, there were multiple, is a little decentralized, right? They were very religiously tolerant, and not in a modern way. It was more like, yeah, we have all these, Palestinian Muslim farmers, and we can't just go around forcefully converting them. Forceful conversion, you can't really justify either. So there was conversion over time, a very slow process, but you did have respect between the Palestinians and the sort of Christian Latins, the Christians from all over Europe that were piling in the holy orders, for example, or, pilgrims that came to Jerusalem and either immediately left or stayed for a while. So you had a very interesting dynamic there. And other than the initial purging of the city of Jerusalem, which is probably exaggerated, saying that the streets were running with blood, that's really just some chronicler wanting to make the situation seem very righteous and badass, right? The Crusaders come in and they kill everybody. there's a sea of blood that is filling every alleyway and every street in Jerusalem. It's like metal, man. It's metal. It seems like this necessary purification for the holy city. It probably wasn't that bad. It was probably really bad because when you refuse to surrender to a besieging force and you force that besieging force that is down to, I don't know, like 10% of the initial crusading force, like a lot of guys died already, and now you're forcing more of them to die in an assault that you're going to lose. So the survivors of that are going to be really pissed off, and they're probably going to kill a lot of you. Not the defenders necessarily, but just anybody in the streets. So yeah, it was probably really bad. But most situations in medieval military history like that get very bad. Vlad was the hero who fought overwhelming numbers of Turks. I don't know what you're specifically referring to. Maybe it had something to do with Kulikovo, because I dropped Kulikovo a while ago. But we weren't supposed to be talking about history, guys. We were supposed to be talking about what I'm going to do with the channel. Come on, let's stay on topic. Stay on topic. Well, where do we begin? So, the next video I'm going to upload on the channel is just a little short tangent by me. I make the argument that we should not allow abortion even for cases of rape or incest. And the argument's very simple, so I can summarize it for you, but a child does not decide the circumstances that they are conceived in. Thus, they are completely innocent in the situation, and if anybody's going to die, it should be the rapist, not the child conceived from the rape. And that is just something I threw together, and I'm going to put up tomorrow. I got to edit the video. I have the audio. It's ready to go. So clearly I'm going to start making regular videos that talk about things like that. Hopefully, a good amount of history. I don't really want to delve too much into modern politics. It's hopeless. Really, really hopeless. It's pointless in many ways. It's only helpful when you can get some amusement out of it. The channel is late and not muted. Oh, you mean the stream. Mel Gibson for 2020, anyone? Mel Gibson is like the best guy to come out of Hollywood. Passion of the Christ is a great movie. Hacksaw Ridge was a great movie. Everything Mel has made has been wonderful, and I'm looking forward to whatever else he's going to put out. And I know the guy is, like I said, of a contest, and he's remarried and all this stuff, but come on, he's from Hollywood. What do you expect? What do you expect from a guy who's gone through the Hollywood, hell zone? I am surprised he is as well off as he is, at least spiritually and morally speaking. He's not as well off as he could be if he was morally bankrupt, like, say, Jim Carrey or anybody else from Hollywood. You could pick a name out of a hat, and you're going to get somebody who is just completely reprehensible. Yeah, Hacksaw Ridge is it's a great movie, even though it is about somebody who's I forget, Seventh-day Adventist. He's still celebrating the Sabbath, and it's man, I don't agree with you theologically, but I mean, wow, this really happened, and normally being a conscientious, completely mispronounced that, guys, but you're going to have to deal with it. Objector is really, lame, but that's a really powerful movie. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, he's making movies about the Rothschilds, which is going to be, that's going to be great. That is going to be powerful. I am looking forward to that. But alongside making some videos that are going to be a little more, just like the live streams, they're going to be off the cuff. And they're going to be honestly off the cuff. I'm not going to make an e-documentary like I used to that's based off of a day of research and, act like I'm a know-it-all. Instead, it's just going to be like, hey, going to talk about this real quick, and that's it. And then when I'm making something that I want to be both an entertainment source and an educational source, it's going to very obviously be like, here's a super long video with a lot of thought put into the script and as much effort possible put into the visuals. That will be something that will happen eventually. Right now, I just really haven't had the time to do anything like that. And not only the time, the motivation. Motivation's a big thing. Yes, Mel Gibson's house survived the California wildfires. But alongside all of that, I don't have a Discord server, 3Claude. Maybe when the channel gets bigger, I'll make one, but Discord is, I don't know, making big Discords, I guess it's safe because this channel is mostly a historical-focused one, though we will soon be branching out in all directions, as I'm about to get into. Maybe I'll make a Discord. But yeah, it is Fed Central. Discord is Fed Central. Not big surprise. I have a Discord account, but I mostly use it for communicating with friends. I don't like big Discords. I never have. They can be very annoying. Debating with people on Discord in big public voice chats is really stupid. You're not going to win any hearts and minds. Actually, you'll win hearts and minds if you are savagely dunking on your opponent and there's a lot of observers. If there's an audience and they think you're entertaining and they slightly can agree with what you're saying, they're going to start agreeing more and more with what you have to say. It's a psychological game, but I don't like those Discords. Look at Soph. Oh yeah, that 14-year-old girl who's making those videos. Haven't watched any of her videos. Really don't have anything to say about her, other than yeah, that's YouTube for you. YouTube will demonetize anything, and YouTube will delete anything. And there's a reason a lot of people are going to end up moving to BitChute. Maybe I'll move to BitChute one day, but I'm not too controversial. Anyway, since I keep getting sidetracked, let me guzzle down a little more sweet tea. So, alongside videos that are, more related to what we've always been discussing in the channel, religion, politics, I hate saying this, it feels like such a big boy word, philosophy, kind of psychology, just the big boy words, amateur humanities, okay? That's the usual focus. Well, guys, just like all of you, I like movies, I like TV shows, I like fictitious, I like fiction media, okay? And I want to talk about it a little bit. And I feel like I need your opinion. I need everybody's opinion, and I potentially need everybody's approval on that. Are you guys okay with me making videos about fiction, about movies, about shows, about games, potentially, about anything that is culturally significant, right? Because fiction is culturally significant. We can learn a lot from fiction, and I don't mean that in a very stupid way, a very pretentious way. I don't mean that like a college professor would, or most modern college professors would. I mean that in the sense that most people only consume fiction, and thus fiction is important when it comes to modern social engineering. So maybe I am starting to sound like a college professor, but kind of like a mirror. Where they'll say that there's all this problematic, they are creating justifications to continue further explicitly subverting fiction media to suit their political purposes. Basically, my main argument is that fiction is what most people consume, not history, not nonfiction, unfortunately. Fiction sometimes does derive and draw from history. And fiction can really shape how people develop their worldviews and develop their values and develop their beliefs. So I think it's something that would be important to talk about. And, you bring up The Sopranos, and that sounds really funny, Sopranos episode reviews, Sobieski analysis of Sopranos, episode 1, and it sounds really silly, but The Sopranos has a lot to say. And do I agree with a lot of what it has to say? Sometimes I don't. I mean, it's made by David Chase. Go look up David Chase, and you'll know why I probably disagree with him. But even when we look at art made by people that most likely hate us, and when I say us, I mean a broad umbrella of people. Broad umbrella. I don't have to describe the umbrella. They can still make art, and that art can still be valuable. It's just that we don't have to interpret it the way they interpret it. We don't have to be at the whims of an author, of the creator of the work. But we can't misinterpret it in the same way that modern lefties and crazy gays do. Trying to make homosexuality, for example, appear where there isn't any, right? Yes, I've watched The Sopranos, Bob. Anyway, that was a ramble. That was a ramble. I just want you guys to tell me if you'd be okay with that kind of content. And there's going to be a video that is going to, propose this question, so people can tell me in the comments there. I don't know if they'd be necessarily reviews. Maybe just discussions. But yeah, Bob, I have seen The Sopranos. Yes, Ivan, you missed the ramble. You didn't miss much. Probably made me sound very stupid. Very stupid. Unfortunately, more modern, more recent fiction, and by that I'm talking about books, shows, movies, there's not really much to talk about. And most of the content online that is derived from, criticizing or analyzing modern media, it's all, this is so shitty. And, I feel the need to vent about how shitty this is. That's a lot of, modern commentary on movies. I mean, even when you go and see a movie that, is good, like I went and saw John Wick 3, and it's a good movie. It's good popcorn fuel. It's a little more than popcorn fuel. You don't forget everything when you leave the theater, but does it really have that much to say? I don't think so. And it's trying to say something, but it doesn't really succeed in saying anything. It's just a movie about a guy who is really good at killing other people, and we're there for the spectacle. That's the problem with a lot of modern good movies, is that they're just spectacle films, because all of the movies that are trying to say something are made by nepotistic, incompetent subversives who are putting their message out there and so explicit, and it's so obvious what they're getting at, and it's so annoying, and it's so obnoxious. And it's not even at the level of caricature. It's not like if you watch movies from the mid 2000s. I recently watched, and God help me for deciding to watch this, but we were watching some of the Final Destination movies, and there is a Final Destination movie, I think it's number 4, where you have this stereotypical, like, Southern racist character. And, you know, he dies in hilarious fashion while trying to burn a cross on some black guy's lawn. And then if you watch the Saw series, there's the whole, like, segment where, you know, these neo-Nazis get killed in a Saw game. And it feels very, like, forced. It feels very unnatural. But it's still, like, this caricature, you know, so you can put up with it. You can put up with, like, okay, yeah, they're gonna beat up on the skinhead gang. Okay. You know, it feels fine. It's amusing, it's lazy, but, like, in the modern day, it's so on the nose, and I don't even know how to describe the difference. Maybe one of you guys can kind of understand what I'm getting at. Me and a friend exchanged some words about it when we were watching these movies, but he isn't here right now, so I can't tell you his insight. But it was a lot more straightforward than mine. All right, let's see. I'm gonna check the chat now. Bob, I'm gonna have to disagree with you. I think season 1 is pretty okay. It gets better by the end of the first season of The Sopranos. The middle seasons I find the least interesting, and I find the last few seasons the best. But that's because I like seeing everything tumble down. Okay, I like seeing things fall apart, and that's what happens in the end of The Sopranos. I have not seen The Front Line made in Korea, Bob. I should check it out though. And when you get your book published, please tell me. I'll order a copy, as long as I can afford it. I do not want to do a review of Captain Marvel or Batwoman. I don't watch Cape shit. I'm part of my French. I just don't. I don't really like superhero movies. It'd be very hard to convince me to watch a superhero movie. You'd have to be a female to convince me to sit down and watch a superhero movie. I have no interest in the genre. And I don't think those are going to be particularly good examples of the genre either, if I had any interest in it. Yes, Rhodesia, you know, very big topic on the channel. And yeah, I can talk about it a little. I've talked about it quite a bit on these streams before. I need to get back to reading some of the memoirs I have from the Bush War. Generally speaking, I still need to put my thoughts together on the whole Rhodesian situation. But, I mean, this is something that I want to make clear. I have this whole religious tirade in the Rhodesia overview video where I'm justifying colonialism and imperialism. And colonialism and imperialism had their benefits and they had their drawbacks. I don't like the British Empire. Now that I've looked at history a little more, I really don't like the British Empire. Now, do I think that the British colonies are thus illegitimate? No. I think that the British imperialism was rotten in some ways. It was also very Masonic. But once you have colonies and once you have these territories, you have an obligation to them. Thus, things get even worse when the Brits decide that they're going to decolonize and pull out of Africa and out of India and out of, you know, all of their, you know, territories, and they're no longer going to have the empire where the sun never sets, right? I definitely think that decolonization was a bigger mistake than colonization. But was decolonization unavoidable? Perhaps you could make the argument. But some of the things that the British were doing, in particularly related to Rhodesia, were completely unnecessary. They had no reason to be participating as they did. I mean, MI6 agents were tipping off Mugabe and tipping off Nkomo of assassination attempts that would be carried out by Rhodesian Special Forces. British rats in the Rhodesian High Command were basically leaking those types of things. Yes, the United States has a Masonic founding. I have no no liking. No liking. That's a silly way to put it. I don't really have anything good to say about the Freemasons, like whatsoever. That should be obvious. I'm a Catholic. We've kind of forgotten in the modern days about all the beef between Catholics and Masons. But for example, the opium trade facilitated by the British Empire was heavily Masonic. You have a Grand Lodge opened in every single node, like every single trade node in the opium trade chain, right? Very Masonic. Cecil Rhodes was not a Freemason, but when he, settled Rhodesia, what did he have to do? He had to build a Freemasonic lodge. So Freemasonry was, I'd say, more influential than the Anglican Church during the era of British imperialism. I wouldn't be surprised, Bob, that there was probably some conflict inside Masonry. And again, my main issue with Masonry is that way too influential. Very clearly, I disagree with it in a religious or theological perspective. And frankly, there's just a lot of bad beef. I'm sure you know about it. I'm sure you know about all the beef between Catholicism and Freemasonry. But just because a country like America or, much of the British Empire, for example, have Masonic histories, that doesn't mean that you hang them out to dry. At the end of the day, history is very nuanced, and there's some things that you're just going to have to accept. For example, I think the Founding Fathers had some good ideas, and I think they had some bad ideas. Even though I think they had some bad ideas and I have some disagreements with them, I'm not going to tear down statues of them. I'm not going to end their public secular veneration. It's just like, it's the opposite of how certain people are nowadays, where they can't understand admiring people that they have disagreements with, modern disagreements, not even contextual disagreements with, where we have to tear down this statue of Robert E. Lee because he was fighting for the Confederacy. It's absurd. Well, I'm not too well versed on this topic, so I say we move to something else. I'm not really going to have much to add, Bob. Minimums. There's not really much else I can say. I haven't really looked into it too much. I haven't really looked into too much of anything recently. I've been busy with other things. So, what do you lads want to talk about? Let's see in the live chat. Throw some things my way, and we'll have a nice little conversation. 32 minutes in, and I am starting to lose my energy. I've had a pretty long day. I did some shooting. Went through like 50 rounds of 45 at the range. That was pretty fun. Very enjoyable time. I suggest, if you're watching this and you haven't gone shooting in a while, go shooting. It's fun. Go shooting at a range, though. Don't shoot people. That's fucked up. Pardon my French. Don't, shoot targets, everybody. Very simple, very simple. There's some people out there who cannot understand that. People who are either sick in the head or not that sick in the head, just they've come to conclusions that are, I would not say, justifiable. Where did I get the Rhodesia brushstroke? I got it off the SWAT Shop website, Boomer website. Like, it looks like it's from the early 90s, and it probably is. It hasn't been, it's updated regularly, but the design hasn't been updated in forever. Or they're just federal agents. Yeah, that's a potential. When it comes to modern current events, always look at something that happens and think to yourself, who benefits from this? Also think to yourself, what is the most feasible answer to what really happened? If there are people that are very conveniently benefiting from a situation, from an event, you might want to start looking around for something sinister, for deceit, for exaggeration, or for total fabrication, or for the guilt of a blind eye. Let's see, lads. Anybody got any topics in mind, or are we going to have to cut this one short? I don't know, I think this has been a decent stream. Really kind of ran out of energy quick. Hey, that's to be expected. I've been up for quite a while, haven't really got too much sleep, and I've been all over the place. Did anything good come out of Vietnam? I don't know. That's a hard question. Let's talk about Vietnam. I can probably get another 10 minutes in talking about Vietnam. So Vietnam, obviously I don't like Ho Chi Minh. And the South Vietnamese government was kind of just our puppet, and that was the mistake. Same with their army. Their army was just a puppet. It was kind of like a proxy force. And we send in our army over there to get things done, and we were doing fine in the war, both in conventional and irregular warfare in Vietnam. America was doing okay. They were doing great at some points. They were doing only good at others. There were situations where, things weren't going our way. There's lots of horror stories from war, but there's horror stories from every war. Vietnam was not this situation where the U.S. Army was being fed into a meat grinder, where rice farmers were, impaling 17-year-olds every hour. Okay, the Viet Cong were not very effective as a fighting force. They were effective when we left against the South Vietnamese. The North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong just steamrolled the South Vietnamese, and I'll get to that. But when it came to us fighting them, we were not incompetent. There was certainly incompetence spread about. I mean, there was drug use and drug abuse. Same thing. Don't know why I said that twice. There were a lot of problems in the American military. And the draft was probably not a good decision. It would have been better to keep things volunteer heavy, because the draft is what forced the political pressure that led us to leaving Vietnam. You found Me for Me, Michael Jones. That's really interesting. Bob, let me know more about that. Michael Jones is a smart guy. He's a very big brain. Much bigger brain than I have. Plus, my brain isn't even fully developed. Not even in my 20s yet. I can't go and legally buy booze. So, I guess I'm just a kid. Anyway, back to Vietnam. So we weren't getting our ass handed to us in Vietnam. It's just that we couldn't invade North Vietnam because it would just be another Korean War situation. The Chinese would get involved. And that is when things would have got tough. So we were just trying to maintain South Vietnam. We're trying to maintain its sovereignty, its independence. We were just trying to ensure our puppet didn't fall. And, there was the containment philosophy that if Vietnam fell, many other states would fall to communism. Now, of course, the whole capitalism versus communism dialectic, I believe, is a false one. There's way more than that. In many ways, capitalism and communism are similar, and that might sound absurd, but I mean on an international scale. Global capitalism and international communism are very similar. It's very funny that the communists are, they're saying that they're against imperialism when you look at the Cold War and you have nothing but communist imperialism. Of course, they call it something else. Anyway, what came out of Vietnam that could be good? Well, we bought the Montagnards, the mounted people, a couple more years because the South Vietnamese and the North Vietnamese hated them. We helped protect them. I don't know what happened to them after the war ended, but I can presume they had a hard time. Hey Bob, your message was retracted. Don't know why. Go ahead and try and send it again. Maybe you'll have to edit something. Our puppet was oppressive and was burning Buddhas. Is that justified? What do you mean, burning Buddhists? I thought the Buddhists were catching themselves on fire. Which is pretty metal, but also absurd. Generally speaking, I'm super Catholic, but I don't think religious persecution is necessary when it does not bear fruit. So, from the Catholic perspective, I want countries and their people to convert in mass to Catholicism. But we need to employ the measures that are best to facilitate that result. And if you go in and you just kill a bunch of, your religious opponents and you suppress the dissidents with the boot and the sword and napalm and whatever else you can employ. Nowadays, I guess it would be a lot of psychological warfare tactics. Whatever. You can't justify that if it's just going to create a situation where you're going to convert a few people and you're just going to empower your religious opponent. And you're just going to create fuel for the fire where later down the line and even immediately following what you're doing, people are going to say, hey, this is bad. That's why the myths about the Crusades and about the Inquisition really hurt Catholicism, and it makes it harder to convert people. It makes it harder for people to take the church seriously because they have this image of the church as this sort of evil institution that was going around burning witches and genociding Muslims in some colonial experiment involving Jerusalem. Neither of those things are true. The Inquisition was very effective, while, guess what? Okay, you found E. Michael Jones from me. Okay, very cool. That's great. I completely lost what I was talking about. What did I just say? I know it was something about, it was about religious, methods of religious conversion, and it was about how you don't want to make stupid decisions. Oh yeah, the Inquisition. Like the Inquisition, people think it was this like crazy thing where, they torture you into confessing that you committed a blasphemy and then you get executed. But the Inquisition courts were so good that if you were imprisoned for a normal crime in Spain, you were kind of inclined to blaspheme, so that you go to the Inquisition courts. They were a lot more fair. Witch burnings were a more Protestant thing. Them mounted people immigrated to Detroit. Montagnards are in Detroit? I don't know about that. I don't think so. Catholicism in Nazi Germany was the same. What do you mean? Catholics, select Catholics, not all Catholics, but definitely many instances of the Nazi regime kind of doing whatever it could to suppress Catholic dissidents throughout Germany, throughout Poland, throughout its occupied provinces. Yeah, that's definitely something that happened. On the topic of Catholicism, opinions on the Spanish cardinals and the Moorish Spanish army. I don't know what you mean by Spanish cardinals. Do you mean like modern day Spanish cardinals in the College of Cardinals? If so, I don't know much. I don't keep up with the papal politics too much. All I know is that there's like a few good cardinals like Burke and Serra. And the Moorish Spanish army, are you referring to the Moors that Franco used to win the Spanish Civil War. I think that might be what you're referring to. I don't know. You're gonna have to clarify, Ivan. The Spanish Civil War Cardinals. The Cardinals. You're gonna have to let me know, because I don't know necessarily what you mean. I know all about like the martyrs of the Spanish Civil War, the priests and the monks, but I don't know the specific involvement of the Cardinals. Yeah, that's not surprising. Yeah, Spain had this whole period where, there were a lot of Jews in Spain and there were a lot of Muslims in Spain after the Reconquista. And there was this issue of mostly Jews who would act as if they were Catholic, but in private they were practicing Judaism. And this was frowned upon by the Spanish regime for obvious reasons. Muslims did it too, where they would pretend to be Catholic, but they were practicing Islam in private. And Spain got rid of a lot of them. Okay, Ivan, I don't think you meant cardinal. I think you mean Carlist. You talking about the Carlist militias? I'm pretty sure you're talking about the Carlists. Slaughtering Zambian troops and civilians? Possibly Zambian troops? Possibly civilians caught in the crossfire? Operation Dingo, the most successful Rhodesian operation, I think was in Mozambique, not Zambia. But the whole thing was that they used a lot of air power to strike at the military base. Note, military base. And then they, encircled the place with groups of SAS and I think it was RLI. Yeah, RLI. Basically, Rhodesian troops landed alongside, just a show of air power. Now, air power, of course, is in many ways indiscriminate. You're talking about explosive guns, bombs, stuff like that. It can be very hard to see your target. Plus, the guerrillas, Zanla and Zanu fighters, were both male and female. And while it's very easy to, not pull the trigger when you see a kid in a military base, because it's a kid, you can't kill kids unless the kid's going to shoot you, then you'll probably pull the trigger. But if you just see some unarmed kid, there's no reason to shoot him. It's a kid. You can't do that. And in memoirs about Operation Dingo from guys who were there, you will see that detail, that they avoided shooting kids. But when it came to men and women, adult men and women in that military base and in the bases they struck, like Dingo, they shot him. They killed him. That was really their only option at that point. International sanctions had kind of pushed them into a corner, and the only way to guarantee that they'd have a couple months or maybe a year or two where they weren't going to have so many armed insurgents piling into the country from Mozambique and from Zambia, the only way that they could ensure that is if they struck their training facilities, struck their military bases, killed large amounts of them. Because if all of those insurgents get into Rhodesia, you now have to play cat and mouse. You now have to find the enemy, which is split up into a bunch of small groups, and you have to surround them and destroy them. And that's what the Rhodesians did with Fire Force. And when the Rhodesians were dealing with, insurgents that would shoot down civilian airliners, that would kill and rape missionaries, not just the adults, but the children. When you're dealing with those atrocities, and those are being committed by people who are coming from military bases in neighboring foreign countries, where you have groups like Frelimo, yeah, I said that right, and the Zambian military that are right next door, basically, kind of part of the operation. And then you have ZANU, then you have Zanla, and if you can just prevent them from getting into the country, or prevent as many of them from getting into the country as possible, you can prevent that from happening you can prevent that kind of violence from impacting your people, black and white, it becomes very obvious why they had operations like Dingo. Oh, you mean that gay guy with all the makeup? YouTube drama. No, thank you. No, thank you. Next thing you know, you're gonna bring up the ProJared guy. ProJared with the with the pencil joystick, who decided to marry a woman that was like, "Hey, can we be in an open relationship?" And he's like, "Okay, I guess." And she was like, "Oh, well, you should start using the advantages of the open relationship. Not just me. Go find another girl, Jared." Then he finds a girl, and oh no, they have feelings. They're not just treating each other like pieces of meat. But even then, I mean, what a goblin looking. Oh man, why would you pick that? Anyway, drama. Meanwhile, the Jared dude is sending his nudes to minors, to teenagers on the internet. This is what you get when people don't understand what marriage is supposed to be. Marriage and sex, all right? Here's the deal. You marry one woman, you have sex with that one woman, that's it. Maybe your wife dies, then you marry another woman, maybe. That's the only way that that's the only way you should be having sex with more than one woman. Because once you give in and once you've had a taste, you're gonna, people keep chasing the next hit, really. People get addicted to porn, people get addicted to sex. Just as they get addicted to cigarettes and just as they get addicted to alcohol. But we can acknowledge this. And generally speaking, we should all be aiming to have the most happy and healthy marital relationships and the most happy and healthy families possible. And to do that, we have to avoid certain practices that include fornication and jacking the ween to porno videos on the internet. We're all over the place tonight, and I like that. That's fine with me. It's good to have a stream. I don't know why this is called a short update stream. I'll just call this update stream and discussion. That way when this is done, people who want to watch it can go ahead and get a brief idea of what they're walking into. 9 more minutes before I'm going to call it a night, though. I think I have either just a mildly sore throat, or I might have caught strep. Really hope I haven't caught strep. Strep is a pain. I always get strep throat. I'm actually having issues with my health insurance right now. I presently have no health insurance coverage, which is a personal fiasco I won't get into, but yeah, that's great. I have strep now. What am I supposed to do? I can't even go get the prescription of amoxicillin. Wonderful. I mean, I shouldn't be taking amoxicillin for it in the first place. They prescribe antibiotics for everything. And, they're wondering why there's bugs out there that are developing and evolving to adapt to be antibiotic resistant. Anyway, guys, is anybody here? I haven't really seen anything put in chat. I hope the stream didn't die. Maybe the solar flare hit the grid and you guys lost connection before I did. That'd be really cool if the solar flare hit the grid, knocked everything out. Probably wouldn't be cool because most of us would die in rather drawn out, tragic ways. If global infrastructure just failed. Kind of scary that we're so reliant on global infrastructure. Proud Albanian, J.C. Denton. Albanian. Okay. Where would I go if I wanted to learn about military history in Africa during the 20th century? Books. Military memoirs. So, Rhodesia, there's plenty. South Africa, there's plenty. And I'm sure that there are some written involving, like, the war in the Congo. There's documentaries of the war in the Congo. I uploaded a portion of one. And there's plenty of stuff out there. You just need to dig. You either need to go and get a book, or you need to go and find, some reputable websites. Of course, you want nuance if you're going to study history. Look at all the sources. You're going to be able to smell the bullshit if you got a good nose, and you'll be able to avoid the propaganda. Just don't be too naive. But combat memoirs, Military memoirs are always the most interesting. They're more useful when you're reading an officer's memoir. With a soldier, you usually get an idea of what the war was like for the everyman, but when it comes to understanding the tactics, understanding the planning, understanding very specifics, the details of operations in the war, you're going to want an officer. You're going to want an officer's word on it, an officer who worked in those operations, who was a part of it, was a part of the leadership. Always very interesting. Where can you learn more about the Portuguese colonies in Africa? Good question. I wish I had the answer. I'm sure there's books out there about it. I have one book about the pre-colonial and colonial period of Rhodesia. I'd imagine that a lot of the books about Portuguese colonialism in Africa are probably in Portuguese, unfortunately. Just like how most good books on the Spanish Civil War are in Spanish. Most English books about the Spanish Civil War lean heavily towards the Republicans, because they were defending democracy. Yeah, right. Sure. That's a whole other can of worms for another stream, for another video maybe. Have you checked out any of the books I suggested for you? Understand if you haven't. Yeah, Bob, I'm sorry. I have a whole stack of books, so my financial situation isn't so good. So to get new books, I have to buy new books. Duh. And I already have a ton of books that I've ordered within the last year or two that I haven't even cracked open. I haven't even read the first chapter of some of these books. So I have a really big backlog of stuff to read. And once I get through that, I will start adding new things to the list, ordering new books. But I don't want to waste more and more money on books that I'm not going to read for potentially years. At the very least, not for a couple months. Books seem pretty reasonably priced, and then you buy a bunch of them. I don't spend too much money personally. I spent the most money on a leisure activity today, but it was kind of practical because I bought some ammo to shoot with. Other than that, I really don't spend too much money, but I don't have that much income at the moment. So even if my expenses are low, my income is minor. And that leads to a pretty poor financial situation. This has been a pretty good stream, guys. We got 4 more minutes to go before I call it a night at that clean, flat hour stream time. 12 people watching is pretty good. I wasn't expecting that because I haven't streamed in months. I know our peak is around 20 to 30. I was pretty high energy early on in the stream. I've lost most of that energy now. But it's good. It's good to do this. It's good to get back into this. I really should just make it a priority to keep up on this because there's no reason not to. These streams do not take too much effort. They do not take too much time. The videos don't take too much time either. It's the big videos that are on the back burner, that are being worked on occasionally, every so often, through research efforts and occasional script writing efforts. Those are the videos that are going to take a lot of time and a lot of man hours. And I'm going to be way more motivated to make those videos if this YouTube channel doesn't seem so dead and is a sort of successful thing. Yeah, Amazon can be decent, especially for ebooks. If you want to just find a book to read and you don't know what book you want, always on eBay. There are books that are like $2 with free shipping from used bookstores. I've got a pictorial history of the Anglo-Zulu War for $3, and they're old books. And old books sometimes are inaccurate, sometimes they're outdated, other times they're much more trustworthy than modern books. I don't feel the need to curate to investigate the author so much as just read the book. Podcast recommendations. I'm sorry, Ivan, I'm not really a podcast listener. I don't know why I don't listen to podcasts. I just don't. Minimums, what did you ask? Yeah, I did say the thing about James Charles. You know, he's the gay with too much gay guy with too much makeup, who was making advances on straight dudes. I mean, if you're straight, you shouldn't be hanging out with James Charles in the first place. Why would you do that if you're straight? I don't understand that. But that's just me, all right? I don't know why you'd hang out with a gay guy who cakes himself in makeup and kind of looks like a demon when you're straight. Memoirs? When do you ask something about memoirs? Please repost the question, Minimums, and I will answer it because I don't see it in the chat. Try and make that quick. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. There will be some videos put up either tonight or tomorrow. I won't upload multiple videos in one day though, because I'm pretty sure that's bad for the algorithm. If I want people, especially the people subscribed to the channel, to see the videos, you guys know how YouTube is. Honestly, I should start shilling for people to hit the notification bell so that we get some better turnout on the live streams, but I don't want to do that. That feels very soulless, feels very corporate. I wish this was like old YouTube. Old YouTube was so much comfier. But my voice hadn't even, my balls hadn't even dropped back when YouTube was good. Now it has so many more features, but it's garbage. It's gotten more and more garbage. Handful of Hard Men by Hans Wessel. That's the SAS book, and 3 Sips of Gin by Tim Bax. Those are both very, very fun books to read, and you're going to get a general idea of the Rhodesian Bush War and an intimate idea of, specifically these men that you're reading about, these stories that you're hearing. Yes, I'm joining the military in August, and that's all I'll say. I'm signing paperwork in August, and then I'll have a ship date. And then when I go into the military, unfortunately, I won't really be able to make too many videos. My online presence will be a lot more limited for multiple reasons, and I think you guys can understand a lot about that. Anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in. Yes, Army, I'm going into the Army. We will be doing another stream probably either later this week or next week or whenever I feel like it, but I'm definitely going to start churning out some minor content, some supplementary videos as I try my best to revive this thing, get it going. That way I'm being less lazy. I need to be more productive, and this is something that's productive. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, everybody, and I hope you all have a nice day. Have a nice night. Tomorrow's Sunday, so try and go to church.